What is shaking? Man, I've been saying this for a straight year now. What is shaking, y'all? It is episode 123, Golden Mike Live. It's your boy, Marc Cordon. It's a very special day because we've been doing this show for a straight year now. We've been doing it for a straight year, people, so we hope you've been enjoying watching this as much as Walter and I have been making this. Walt, you and I started a year ago, and like this originally was supposed to be a 15 damn minute show, and because of you, Walt, like it's like an hour for every guest. You set the damn bar. So congratulations to you.
No, well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate being part of this, and I'm really I love your energy. I love your growth mindset to throw that in as we're learning that through your program, the Joy Revolution, which is awesome. I really love being around with people that engage life, that are in that growth expansion moments of their lives. Mm-hmm. And so I think that when you first asked me, you were one of my first people that I actually allowed myself to be interviewed for, because I'm a very focused guy, and I think that ever since that episode, I've been out watching more live videos, commenting more, and every time I start to comment, people want to talk to me. So
well, you've become like a Hollywood star now. You're everywhere now, man. You're everywhere. So I wanted to start off. I mean, let's do this. Let's do this show right, man. Because you started this with me, man. So for those of you who haven't met me, my name is Marc Cordon. I am the founder of Make Money Coaching, and I'm the Chief Disruptive Officer of the Joy Revolution. The Joy Revolution. It's so militant sounding, right? More importantly, I'm a positive psychology coach, which means on Facebook Live for 1 year straight, I've been pounding on this desk in different areas of the country, but asking the same two questions of every guest that have come through. It's been 123 episodes we've been doing this. And by the way, Walt, you know why we've had 123 episodes?
I haven't got a clue, but you're going to tell me.
It's because you cannot cancel me, people! You cannot cancel me! I produce my own show, people! Oh, I got spit all over my mic, spit all over my face. But more importantly, I ask two questions. The first one is this. Scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you today? Walt knows the inside job with this in the Joy Revolution. He knows the big talk, the big words behind it. But on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you today? Then also, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you living life in your fullest purpose and meaning today? Walt, I've asked you this multiple times, but it seems to shift every time I ask you. Walt, how happy are you today, and how much are you living in your meaning and purpose?
You know what? Today is every moment we're in is once in a lifetime. This moment right in, being with you, I'm at a 10.
I love it.
11.
Oh, we just busted the joy capacity on that one, baby. We got a new capacity going on. I absolutely love it. For those of you watching live or on the replay, we're going to ask you the same question. If you're living life at a 10, 11, like Walt, happy, in full purpose, Walt, do it from Canada. No Canada jokes today, because Tampa Bay is taking it all the way. Give me a heart, Walt. I want you to hit the big old heart button for us. Beat that heart, people. Let us know you are alive. Beat that heart. Now here's the other thing. Rip that shirt open, Walt. Now here's the other thing. A lot of people think that positive psychology is like 24/7 shits and giggles. It's happiness all the time. We're watching Pollyanna. Our teams are winning the Stanley Cup every year. We're always happy. Well, that's not the case in positive psychology, folks. That's one of the biggest misperceptions of what happens in positive psychology. It's really about the ups, the downs, and the all-arounds of life, right? Your ability to cope with all those emotions. Walt also knows the inside job on that. It's called the joy capacity. It's your joy capacity is about being able to cope with those emotions, right? So if you only think that happiness is the one emotion you need to be feeling? Well, you're one of two things, baby. One, you're a psychopath, or two, you're dead. Life is about those ups and downs and all arounds of life. Walt, if you watch Walt and I's conversations over the past years, or the past year, we've had a lot of painful moments in our life, but we've integrated that. So for those of you right now, and we're still integrating, it's not like we've conquered life at all. And so for those of you who are like right in the middle right now, and you're like, dude, Aguilar, Cordon, like last week, I was super happy, but I'm not happy anymore. That's okay. That's okay. Or if you're like, you know what? I thought I knew what my meaning and purpose was for like 30 years, and now I've fallen out of it, and I feel weird. That's okay as well. That's part of your hero's journey. Your heart beats like everybody else. Just give us a thumbs up. Hit that thumbs up button. Let us know that you're alive. Let us know that you're living the dream. You're living your life, all right? Just let this conversation wash over you, and hopefully you'll have some fun with Walt and I today. Here's the final part. Here's the final part, baby! For those of you who feel like no matter where you're at, 1, 5, 10, 11, joint capacity's busted, you are all over the place, you don't know where you're at, that's cool too. But if you know that today is the best day of your life, today is gonna be even better than yesterday. Yup, Walt knows what's going on. He's gonna show you. There's another one down there. It's called the Wow Face, and Walt is officially gonna go into the Hall of Fame for most Wow Faces on this show. Hit that Wow Face. What does it look like, Walt? Ow! Absolutely terrifying Wow Face. Absolutely terrifying. I absolutely love it, Walt. Walt Aguilar, the coach with no niche, my brother from another mother, the man who escaped the Matrix, the man in general, PS4 legend. How are you doing today, brother?
You know, I'm after that intro, I'm ready. I'm ready to get back on my PS4 and beat some 14-year-old from middle America.
Usually, I'm that 14-year-old that's getting beat, man. We can go at it with NHL 2K219, right? So Walt, I've asked you this every single time, and every single time it changes. But like everybody knows that I start my show off with this question, and so I want to ask you the question again today, brother. What is your story, man?
Well, the thing is, my story changes because I think the biggest thing that I've realized about my story is that my story doesn't define me. It's my life experiences. But I guess as a way to connect with everybody out there, right? My story is that I had a moment about 5 years ago where I hit I guess they call it the dark night of the soul, where I hit bottom, and it basically made me kind of look at my life, and it made me decide to really think about what it is that I was doing with my life and how was I going to contribute to life. I had to come to terms with the fact that I really hadn't accomplished a lot. I had experienced a lot, but hadn't accomplished a lot. So then I was looking to see how I could do that, and coaching was an inspiration to me that came because of a moment that I had with my wife, who told me that she was a board of director on a particular one of the disability foundations here in Vancouver, and a coach came and spoke to them, and she just said to me, "Hey, you know what? I think in the future they're going to need coaches." So my light went on, and then I started looking around to see where I might want to coach, and that's where IPEC, and that's where our connection came from. That they had a system of coaching that was based on energy, and being an athlete in the past, I understood energy, and just even go to a hockey game, you can feel the momentum shifts, you can feel when things happen, you could actually feel the energy. So it made a lot of sense to me. So I decided to become a coach. Mm-hmm. And part of that had to do with also the fact that I had to take a look at my own life circumstances and realize that in order for me to live the life that I wanted, it had to do more about me. So I started making some changes. So I started working from home. Basically, a lot of my clients, majority of my clients, are online.
Mm-hmm.
I'm downstairs in my basement in my office. As you can see, my green screen. Usually, I have nice little backgrounds. But really, what happened was I started coaching people, and the reason for that is because I have a little special needs boy who we've taken care of since he was 14 months old. He's now 19. And what I realized is that old saying that when whatever you think is the obstacle is actually the path. Mm-hmm. And the reason for me was I had to look at the fact that I fell in love with this boy, and that because of him, I always felt, even as a coach, that I wasn't able to really become the coach that I wanted because of this immense responsibility. And what I realized is that it's because of this immense responsibility that I've learned that joy literally comes from the inside out. It's not an external thing. It's not an over there. So I guess that's sort of if you want to know a little bit of framework of my story, that's kind of the framework. The fact that I never niched out, because during IPEC, they were all saying, well, you should find a niche. And there was one mentor coach who said to us, you know what? Tell you what, I'm going to tell you something a little different, but try every niche, see what resonates with you, and see who resonates with you as well, and then go do it.
So did every fucking thing resonate with you? Because you're still nicheless right now.
Well, the thing about it was that I because of the fact that I found my purpose, my mission later in life, I've had a lot of life experiences. Mm-hmm. I've been in the corporate world doing sales. I was a competitive athlete, football player, ice hockey, wrestling, you name it. I've had artistic endeavors where I used to promote Cuban bands when I was younger. There was a lot. I have a real colorful life experience. So therefore, people used to think you got to pick a lane. And then what I realized is because I didn't pick a lane is why I can work with so many niches. I've also worked with at-risk youth. I've actually worked with some of the worst, which really, I think, if you turn around, they're some of the best of the best. Because they have that energy, and all it needs to do is just be transmuted into more of the anabolic energy, more of the growth energy. Yeah. They're just young people that haven't been given the tools to effectively transmute or alchemize their energy into something that's more positive and more meaningful. And that's just my belief on average people. So
I love it, Walt. And we already got folks tuning in. Tara, it is great seeing you. Joy Revolutionist is in the house saying hi to her brother. She's loving the topic today, Walter. So it looks like we're going to be talking about power versus force for a little bit. Carrie, it is great to see you. You're welcome. She said thank you for sharing this with us. You're so welcome. Let me see how to turn that off for a second. This is the second day on the new format today, so give me a break, people. Give me a break. You're already pissing me off. Good thing Walt is on here to keep me from popping off today. Now, Walt, I think this is a nice example, you and I, in contrast, of maybe power versus force. And traditionally, when I've thought about power versus force, I've been thinking about the book, Power versus Force, which is a leadership book on how to influence others. But when you're talking about power versus force, it's almost like you're talking about the way that we live our life using power versus force, like an internal mechanism.
Correct. Yeah, the thing that I think about power versus force is because an understanding of the energy leadership that we were taught, right? That we have 7 levels of consciousness, awareness, engagement, and confidence. And really what happens is that power is not an external thing. It's an internal thing. And the thing is that a lot of the things outside of ourselves we don't have control over. So one of the examples that I use with a lot of clients is that when you give somebody else or something the power over you to be happy or unhappy, you've given your power away. And when that happens, then we have no choice but try to force life. Right? Whenever people get fearful or they feel like something they care about they're losing, they try to control something. Classic example is a hockey player when he's playing hockey. When he is trying to force life, he holds onto his stick a little tighter.
Squeezing that stick, baby.
When a sales manager is got people over him asking him for the outcomes, the results, he doesn't squeeze the sticks. He squeezes the salespeople more. Right? Higher goals, more pointed conversations about their job security. It's like it's really
they put a press on people. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it's like a full court press, right? It's like
yeah. Well, to rewind a little bit, what is your definition of power? Because I think we're going to have to look at the nuances in a little bit, right? Because, initially when you think about it, you're like, oh, power versus force. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Maybe synonyms. But no, there's nuances there. You're talking about giving power away, right? And then having to force things. So talk about power first. What is the way that you define that?
Well, I think the one thing that I look at power, and I it's interesting because one of my taglines for my company of Power versus Force coaching, because this isn't about the Power versus Force book.
Yeah.
It's about understanding that power is being, and doing is force. So being, because one of the things that happens, right, is that we have to understand that who we are is not the roles we play. We are not. We're not an employee, an employer, a husband, a dad. None of those things. Those are what we do. Right. Our quality of our performance in that particular role is based on an equation that I heard at a Luke Orio interview once with an executive coach, and it made so much sense. So I don't take credit for this, but I find that I love Eckhart Tolle's idea that words are just signposts. So what I'm often looking for is better ways and more effective ways to explain the unexplainable to people, which is kind of ironic that there's irony in that, right? Power versus force. When you think about this, is that performance equals potential minus interference. So when we look at this, when we consider the fact that any of the roles we play is not who we are, it's what we do. Who we are is what we bring to that role. Our potential is our ability to tap into the skills and talents that we have for that particular role. But when we can be totally present, mindful, right, in the moment, choosing to be in the moment on purpose without judgment, right, we can tap into and connect to creativity and intuition.
Mm-hmm.
When we're in that state of mind, right, we actually even overcome who we think we are. Because a lot of who we think we are is our ego-created sense of self based on our habitual thinking, according to Joe Dispenza. Right? We have these neurons, this way of thinking, that's who we think we are, right? How many people have heard somebody said, well, I got pissed off at that because that's just the way I am. Mm-hmm. Or if people don't like it, F them, that's just the way I am. No, it isn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being able to tap into and connect to creativity and intuition gives us the ability to really tap into our God-given gift, which is to make a conscious choice.
So you're saying creativity and intuition is the highest level of our potential, and we often will not be able to tap into that because I'm going through the formula right now because of things that we allow to interfere in our life. It's a choice to have something interfere. Is that what you're saying?
Well, what happens is that it's not here. Here's the thing: is that we all walk around life thinking that we're actually making choices in the moment. That's an illusion, right? And the reason why is a lot of our choices are based on memory, based on the past or fear of the future. And in reality, the past doesn't really exist except in memories of present moments. The future doesn't really exist. They're expectations. And the reason I always tell this, and I prove it to people, is because the first time that we had the interview, we're now in the future, but it's still now.
I know, man.
However, right, it's neither better or worse than we thought it's going to be. By the end of the day, when you look back at this interview we did, you're going to label it something. Hey, that was great. That was meaningful. That was, holy cow, I can't believe we talked about that or whatever.
Oh, it's right? Lights out every time, baby. Yeah. It's lights out every time with Walter.
So what happens, right, is that even this thing about creativity and intuition, that's basically when we're now we're overcoming because a lot of our past is based on what we've driven into our subconscious, what we can remember. And the language of the subconscious is emotions. So what happens is that a lot of times people will make decisions in the moments based on how they feel. So if you're really caught up in the past, there comes a point, and this is something that Joe Dispenza I thought was really fascinating. He said that sometimes for people, their body becomes their brain because how they physically feel and all the chemical stuff that happens from the thinking, all of it starts, I'm depressed, therefore I got to have depressed thoughts. Mm-hmm. So we're called the illusion that we're actually making choices, but we're basically living out the past. And that's why people have these recurring dramas in relationships and work and what have you, is because we've created these neural pathways of habitual thinking. So if it ain't our minds, thoughts are for the mind, experiences are for the body. So the idea is that when you're in your power, is you actually become greater than your mind and your body. And when you get to that point, athletes call it the zone. A lot of salespeople like to call it the flow. Mm-hmm. It's the idea of actually hacking into the operating system. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's where the power is, because when we get to that state of mindfulness and being able to, I guess, from the perspective of energy leadership, we get into that self-transcendent moment where we overcome ourselves and we now tap into what some people call the quantum field. Other people consider it connecting to God or thinking like God. There's a lot of different names for it. But if you look, even if you just take the quantum field, it's where everything is possible. So wouldn't power be the ability to make a conscious choice of what you truly desire and having that become your reality?
That totally sounds like power. But also, someone could make an argument that sounds like force, too. So what would be the difference?
Well, you could make that argument, but any argument is great till somebody else questions it, right? It's a biblical.
You've known me a year, brother. You knew I was going to ask that devil's advocate question. But because I think one of the things that I'm thinking about here is this idea that it's almost like power and force. Both of them get outcomes, but power gets it with like grace and ease and stillness. Force is almost like you're almost going against the grain of life to make it happen, and you don't have to do it that hard. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And the difference is that when you're doing it from power, really, when you talk about anybody that talks about the law of attraction or quantum physics, you don't have to know the how.
Yep.
right? And it's belief. When you think of inspiration, any kind of inspiration we have, there's always we always have those feelings of uncertainty with it, right? And the reason why that is because whenever we get inspired, we get the idea, we don't know how, but we got to believe and have faith, which is being sure of what you hope for and certain of what you cannot see. And even the idea of Paul Coelho, who wrote The Alchemist, right? The universe conspires with those who have a definite purpose. So, and when you really think about it, from people that have a belief in God, is that God conspires with those that have a definite purpose, right? Because when we think about force, it's a lot about the doing. It's a lot about trying to make an outcome based on our strength. And quite often when we think about it, a lot of our so-called strength are nothing but memories of what's worked, what hasn't worked. And so what happens is that's also where the idea of, and I got this from you as well too, is the growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. People with a fixed mindset will try to force their lives, right? People with a growth mindset will understand that walking into uncertainty is not a bad thing, and that it's a necessary thing, right? And I think that's where that flow comes in. If you've ever played any sports, or have you ever had anything happen in your life where you were in that flow, if you notice when you were in that flow, the right people would come into your life.
Yep.
You would go to a bookstore, you pull the right bookstore. Like, all you really needed was the desire and that intention.
Yeah.
And belief in that intention.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally feel that. I'm seeing the difference right now. And for those of you guys watching the replay or watching live right now, if you have any questions about power versus force, please let us know, because now I'm getting locked into this difference. You got me out of the book. Now you got me into the sort of esoteric. Now what I want to know is, can you give me a couple examples of times in your life when you were either living in power or you were living in force, and you shifted it from one to the other unknowingly, or you did it intentionally?
I think the one thing that I did, and it's interesting because I remember when I was about to go to my Mod 3.
IPEC, the last training.
And I decided to have a talk. I put on Craigslist, and I was going to record it, and I was going to teach people about the zone. I had one person actually answer the ad. My brother came. That person canceled at the last minute. I was there with nobody.
Yeah.
And what happened was my brother said, "So should we do this?" I go, "Yeah, let's do it anyways." I go, "'Cause one day I will be talking in front of a lot of people, and I need to practice." Fast forward roughly 2 years into it. After that, me and another coach, who is also an IPEC coach, were walking into the Denver Broncos media room the day after they won the not the Stanley Cup, the Super Bowl.
We know what country you're in.
So we were walking in there, and we were going to present to the Colorado Avalanche top prospects in front of a multi-million-dollar media room. And we both looked at each other, took a deep breath. We went in and we said a little prayer of gratitude. And that's where the power came in. The thing that all that thing happened, there was no forcing that. That experience flowed. Right? And I think that's where I really experienced the whole idea of having a desire and just believing it and watching it unfold and just being really grateful for it.
Yep.
The times where I've forced my life was situations. I guess one of the things that I could think about. I'm just thinking of some of the ways that I've forced my life. I think that there's been a few times where early on in my career, there was one where I was actually just starting to. It was my first paying client actually. Right? It was a friend, and I knew intuitively that he needed more therapy than he needed coaching. But I was so new as a coach that I actually even said, "Hey, we'll do it," and I charged him like half of what I would charge anybody. And I was at that point I was trying to force my coaching.
Yeah. Oh.
And we went into it about 20 minutes into it, asked one question, like all the emotions came out. It was like, yeah, this like all the pain came back. And essentially I had to give him back his money. Like I just realized myself that I was forcing that situation. It had no flow. I really the one good thing about it that I did learn from it was that at that time I wasn't prepared to do that. I also didn't do an ELI assessment with him.
An energy leadership index.
Yeah, right. To find out where he was at in regard to his self-awareness, his emotional intelligence, his own understanding of how life situations may be affecting him. I didn't do that, but I forced it, and I figured that, you know what, coaching, go coach somebody, get paid.
Yep.
That's it, because that's how I used to think about sales, right? Right? It's you got to sale. Once that check clears, you got to sale, right?
Yep.
That was the mentality, and what I realized was that's not how coaching happens.
And you know what's really interesting there is that it again, even though we know the differences now between power versus force, it's almost like, you know, with our ego that sometimes gets in the way. I can do this. I can get this sale. This will help me with coaching. Oh, but was I really doing the best level of service by taking on this client? Right? That's all easy to say, you know, in hindsight. But when you're in the moment trying to make the best decisions that you can, it will make sense at the time because the ego rationalizes it. You know, I think what's really interesting is Walt. I love those examples, and if it's cool with you, I'd love to bring up examples that I'm thinking of in my life, and you can tell me if that was power versus force, right? Because it is nuanced. I'm thinking about when I was in college, right? I know I still look like it. I still look like a dashing freshman. But I remember I was good at neuroscience. I was really good at it. At that time, I wasn't passionate about it. And so I thought I was going to become a neuroscientist and follow the footsteps of my parents in the medical field and stuff, right? We've talked about this in previous episodes, you know, family and stuff like that. And it was easy to do, but something felt off. It was like I didn't want to jump out of bed every morning. And to me, even though it was easy to get good grades, it was like I was forcing myself to be happy and joyful about that. So I feel like that was forced, like I was forcing my way to make myself happy, to please others. And I could have lived a life like that, but that seems more like force. I was getting the outcomes, but it wasn't really living. Is that more force?
Yeah, because when you think about it, even that equation, we didn't talk about the interference, right? Because we talked about the fact that performance equals potential, and the potential is making decisions in the moment, conscious decisions that serve you and those around you, right? So when you have interference, it's when you have stress reactions that cause you to go into past or future thinking, right? Into the past or the future, right? And what happens is that the ego can only exist in the past or future, right? Because when you're in the present moment, that space is taken up by who you are, who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's good.
It's that old John Kabat-Zinn book, right? Wherever you go, there you are, right? You don't need to go to Europe. Just be in the moment you're in. That's where you are, right? So when you're doing something for reasons that are not authentic to yourself, right? You will want to be somewhere else, either the past or the future. And it's funny how a lot of the Buddhists, Eckhart Tolle, they talk about that as suffering.
Yep.
It's non-acceptance of the moment. And I think that even those feelings, when you think about that, because being able to accept that you're not happy is what's going to help you to get happy and joyful. Mm-hmm. Because what happens is that from an energetic perspective, those feelings are called catabolic. It's a contracting energy, and you're going to feel it in your body. You're going to feel it, and that's why you don't want to get up and go out and take on the world. You want to basically, and the reason why that happens is because catabolic contracting energy with all those lower emotions of depression, fear, anger, all those things, throws us into self-protection, survival, or that disappointment about not being able to get the outcomes that we think we need to be happy.
Yep. And I think on the simplest level, Walt, that catabolic energy that you're talking about is draining. If you just think about the things that you do in life, there's certain things that, I mean, I've been doing this show for a damn year straight, right? I feel more pumped up every single day that I do this show. I feel more energized it's like part of my coffee and my routine now. I think about doing something for a straight year, like a year of neuroscience, and it felt like 20 years. It was draining. Like, I felt like I was aging. Like, I feel more young than ever now. And maybe that could be the very beginning of us making the distinction between power versus force. If we're continuing to live in a catabolic state, we're continuing to walk around like feeling like we have weights on our legs, weights on our emotions, versus living in power where we are always feeling energized. Not always, but it's an energizing overall feeling. Would you say that's correct?
Well, it's totally correct.
Okay.
Because catabolic energy is also denser energy.
Okay.
So it feels heavy. All it really is just thoughts.
Okay.
Right? But it's a dense energy. But the interesting part that you said is that, because I've had coaching clients now that I've had for like 2 or 3 years, and I still get pumped to go and coach them. I get pumped, and these are basically clients who are older, more affluent, and don't necessarily have a lot of people close to them.
Yeah.
But to watch them go from fixed mindsets to growth mindsets just pumps me up. And I think that what we're talking about here, right, is that you weren't always this joyful. The fact that you had that moment of that heavy energy where you didn't want to get out of bed is the same energy right now that's pumping you up. The only difference is you've been able to become an energy alchemist, because energy you can't destroy or create. You can only transform and transmute. Okay,
so now you're getting all woo and shit on me.
Well,
and wait. But I want to go there with you, because you work with people you work with the gamut of people, right?
Yes.
And so I want to be devil's advocate again and say, or not even devil's advocate, how do you explain to folks what energy is? Are there folks that push back and they're like, what, dude? You're telling me like there's energy that's denser than other energy? Or do most people just say, yeah, I get it?
Well, you know what? I think that because of the fact that we're having this talk and I'm in Canada, God knows where you are, somewhere in the States. You're always clobbering one city or another.
I'm in the city of champions, baby. Yeah. Tampa Bay Lightning.
So the thing is, if you really look at it, right, the only reason why we are able to have this conversation is because there's energy that's taken us in through the internet we're making noises that we consider language. And in order to make those noises, we need energy to still be alive. I actually quite often tell them, and one of the examples I use is that if you've ever been to a wake where you see somebody who you used to know and is no longer here with us, they don't look anything at all like you remember them.
Yeah.
Because life force, their energy's gone.
Yeah.
Right. And it's kind of like and if they're athletes, they get it because or if you're a fan of a sport, you get it. You know when the momentum shifts.
Yep.
You feel it. So
Yep.
I think that energy is becoming a lot easier to understand than it used to be in the past because of the advent of the internet.
Yeah.
And how does I come from an era where you had these rotary dials and it cost you a fortune to call somebody, right? Now, right? So we have right now we have a better understanding of energy, and it's getting more scientific from the guys like Joe Dispenza, a lot of the law of attraction guys. I think the esoteric and the science is actually there's more connection going on, so that those that are more scientific are now opening up to esoteric, and the people that are esoteric are starting to get excited by the science that's actually connecting to it.
Well, I love that. I love that you bring up real world examples of that, because just basic sports, it's a game of momentum, right? But then you think about that, and it's like, what exactly is momentum? It's energy. It's energy. The energy is shifting from one team to another. Or I watch pro wrestling. I admit it. I love it. But the wrestlers will overcome their pain by just drawing, they say, energy from the crowd. The crowd is getting them so hype that they draw the energy from that. And so I believe that's what you're talking about, right, Walt? Is that it's all the things that we've ever been talking about when it comes to energy is actually a scientific thing that we can almost measure now.
Well, think about it this way, right? I'm not a quantum physics physicist. I'm not at all. Quite often,
you've been everything else.
Yeah. But when you think about it, when they actually go down to the subparticle level, right, they've actually are able to see that 99.999% of what we think is solid is actually space. But what they've actually realized, it's not empty space, it's energy. Right? So the thing about this is that everything that we see as real at the very core level is just energy, and it just vibrates at a certain energy level and then becomes solid. And that's got nothing to do with esoterics. That's all the quantum physics that are messing up their whole science. Right? And the thing about this is that they've been able to see also that when these scientists change their perspective of it, they would either see the waves, which is the energy, or the particle.
Yep.
That's where guys like Dwayne Dyer, who back in the 70s was telling everybody, when you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at change.
Yep.
Remember that there's that now, okay, that's why it happens, right? There's that starting to happen more and more. And that in this quantum field, every possibility exists. So when you think about being in the present moment, and when we think about even the level 7 energy and the energy profile, where we create, observe, and experience anything we desire as quickly as we believe possible.
This is where we've gotten rid of all the distractions, and we're at full potential.
Because at the highest level of consciousness is creation. Right? When you're pure consciousness, anything is possible.
Yeah. And by the way, Walt, we have another Joy Revolutionist tuning in right now, saying hi, and also giving us references. We have Professor Klein with us today, who's talking about the sociology of energy. Energy from the crowd is also known as collective effervescence, yes, a term coined by sociologist Durkheim. So, I mean, we're talking about big named folks here, from quantum physicists to Durkheim, who have been looking at it from all different angles, but then the lived experience is us just showing up to a wake and saying, Uncle doesn't look like Uncle anymore. You know what I mean? So I love what you're doing. Yeah, I love my shirt as well. So they commented on my shirt.
Wait,
give us a heart if you love Walt's hat.
So the thing is that so what I find, what I get excited about is connecting all the dots.
Yeah.
Where I feel that my gift is now taking all those dots I've connected and bringing it to that person in front of me.
Yeah.
So that they can choose to live in their power. They can question what their programming is, the programming as far as their beliefs, and they thought that was going to make them happy.
By the way, they're nailing the hearts right now on your hat, bro. They're going crazy with the heart. Give them a hat tip. There you go. We're nothing but performance monkeys on the golden mic, everybody. Go ahead, Walt.
So the thing is that a lot of it is the whole awakening is realizing that the story that we think we have in our lives, that all the beliefs and all the programming that we have, really a lot of those things that we learned, we weren't even cognizant enough to decide whether we wanted to take on those beliefs or not. So then all of us go and quite often we get taught it's about achievement and accumulation. Right? If we achieve enough, if we accumulate, somehow we'll be enough. And I think that achievement and accumulations in and out of themselves are neither good nor bad, because our people that are very well educated, have wealth, and do a lot of benevolent things in the world. That's not the issue. The issue is that if you get your sense of self-worth based on those outcomes, right, you will be sorely disappointed in life. Because that doesn't fill the gap. That doesn't give you, because a lot of what we've been focused on is about the outcomes. It's about, remember the over there? When I get over there, that's when I'm going to be happy. When I meet that person that's going to complete me, which again is a lot. We don't complete each other. We learn how to be complete in ourselves, and then we find ourselves an adventure buddy.
You're the best, man.
Right?
You're the best.
Because if we need somebody to complete us, when that other person does no longer want to have that role anymore and decides they want to go and complete themselves with someone else, then we get all heartbroken and whoa, it's I'm not good enough and all, right? So then next thing you know is that then we get into those lower energies where life feels heavy, and we stop living life. We just, all we do is we start to exist, and our life is just a means to an end, where eventually we die, and that's all there is to it. But that's not the way life was created to be. We were supposed to be joyful and happy and abundant.
I just hearted that. So you're what you really are talking about is if we're not turning internal, we'll tend to force and press ourselves on the external world. For example, like you just said, if I need another person to complete me, then I'm forcing myself onto things. I'm not, that's not power. I'm not okay with, I'm probably feeling lonely still, even, like it's not true power. I'm forcing something. I'm forcing the issue. Right.
And I think that also comes down, you're exactly right on that. And I think that the reason why we're forcing that is because that sense of lack, that somehow we're missing something.
Where does that come from?
The sense of lack, I think it has a lot to do, when you really look at young kids, the majority of them, unless obviously they have some kind of mental illness or something early on, but for most well-adjusted kids, if there is such a thing, they're pretty fearless. They don't have a lot of the hang-ups that we as adults have. But very early on, we learn about fear, right? And we learn about this from variety, from our parents, from schools, from just interactions with other kids. We learn about we were the last ones picked in baseball because maybe we haven't grown as quickly as everybody else, or we're not as we got. I used to have these. I was a skinny little brown kid with these dark glasses, and I was really nerdy when I was a
Make
kid.
that too.
Right? So we learned a lot of stuff early on where we don't feel like we're worthy, that we're good enough, and we're afraid of things. So what happens is that that's where having intervention of loving parents or any significant person in your life that say, you know what, I believe in you. You know, Marc Cordon, you can go and do something awesome with your life. I believe in you. Even though you're a nerdy little Filipino kid, you can go. You can go start the Joy Revolution if you want.
Technically speaking, that's how I felt when I was in IPAC watching you. I was like, Carrie's asking the same question. Where does it come from that we think we do not need others to complete us? And because that's where she is in her life right now. And that's what she's putting in there right now. And, you know, you're talking about two things. One of the things is this ubiquitous indoctrination. Oh, you like the nerdy little Filipino kid that's coming out? Ubiquitous indoctrination that, like, we get it from church, we get it from school, we get it from other things to fear and not sort of think about our intuitive selves, those sort of things. When it's making sense that every class we go to is technically about, like, the quantum physics of life and love and living your life, right? But are we indoctrinated, or is that part of a natural process that we kind of lose a sense of self for a while in order to gain a stronger sense?
Well, I think that's where the whole idea of being able to transmute energy and being able to transform energy as we go along, right? Because the thing is that if you were never lonely, you wouldn't get as inspired to go out and make friends, right? It's like everything that we go through in life is to help us to really kind of grow, and that's why the whole idea that none of the energies that we think as lower energies are necessarily bad or good, because energy itself is not bad or good. It's more effective or less effective, right? If I go out and I'm pissed off at the world, it's not going to be very effective in me actually making friends, right? It might get me out of my house to go to my job that I don't like, right? But so everything is more effective, less effective. So I think that really and learning how to accept all parts of ourselves is important. That's one. And number two, the whole idea. I think everybody always talks about this, right? And I've actually been a dating coach as well too. Even a married guy can be a dating coach.
Hell yeah. With a hat like that?
Because the best time, right? The best time to be in a relationship is not when you're lonely. It's when you've accepted the fact that you're alone and you're okay with it. Because then you don't need that other person.
Yeah.
Right? There's not a neediness. Because if we've all been in relationships where somebody's really needy, it's like, ooh, right? Because you become a bit of an energy vampire. Right? And so the thing is learning, when you can learn to be alone, and when you realize that you're actually never really alone, because when you get into the operating system, right, you realize that we're more connected to each other than we think we are.
Oh, he's talking about the Matrix now, people. He's talking about the Matrix. Carrie, I hope that answers your question in terms of where you are in your life, and like I'm loving the fact that you've tuned in the past couple days. Carrie, I think I've got a very similar view, and Walt, I hope that you'll let me wax poetic for a couple seconds here on that, because I absolutely agree with you. I think that this is a culture right now in which the idea of missing out, the idea of being alone, is a very force-driven culture. And if we even think about it, the condition is called FOMO, fear of missing out, fear of forcing things, right? Where truly, if you turn inward and you're okay with where you're at, it's someone called it, I forgot, Brian Johnson today, called it JOMO. The joy of missing out, because you're okay with the fact that you're missing things that are like not that big of a deal. By the way, in the Joy Revolution this week, we're going to be talking about relationships that we're so fearful of missing those friends that are not really our true friends, that we're missing out on spending time with ourselves and people who give a shit about us, our virtuous friends. And we're really focused on the wrong thing. We're forcing ourselves on the wrong thing versus being in our power. We're giving our power away. I hope that makes sense. Oh, look at this. Someone from the Joy Revolution, Melanie Klein, just said, Walter, you're so on fucking point. I added the F word there as emphasis. No. Walter can't see it. Walter can't see it. Y'all, do it one more time with me. Hit all those hearts. We're at like 56 something hearts. So like, if you love Walter's hair, if you love his glasses, if you love the fact that this man is just this gentle, amazing, just soul that's just, we always come in with no agenda and you always drop amazing stuff, Walter. I know that we're going to have you back before year 2, brother. You're going to be on probably in month 2 coming up. Walt, let's keep in touch with you. We got all your contact information on the show notes right now. You know what's going on. You helped me invent this part. The golden mic. Watch this, Carrie, if you haven't seen this one yet. The golden mic is now coming down from the ceiling, and it's resting in front of Walter Aguilar right now. Walt, the golden mic translates into every language all across the world. The world is listening to what it is that you have to say. Walter Aguilar, your golden mic is live now.
I think the biggest thing is really learning how to take all the knowledge, especially if we have a growth mindset, and to change that knowledge into wisdom in our lives. And wisdom, I was sitting in church about 3 weeks ago, and a pastor said this, and it was really profound that I posted on one of my posts, is wisdom is doing the right thing in the right way at the right time for the right reasons. So I'll say that one last time. Wisdom is doing the right thing in the right way at the right time for the right reasons. If we can learn how to live our lives by changing all the knowledge that we have into wisdom for our lives, then we're one step closer to having that meaningful and joyful life that we all crave.
Walter? No, even before I tell him, he throws that golden mic down. Okay, now I want you to tip your cap, crank the monkey cranker, and I'll do the dance. I'll do the monkey dance. Walter Aguilar never fails to deliver. The man without a niche, the man who escaped the matrix, from love to quantum physics, to sociology. We talked about it all. You've said enough. We're turning the golden mic off. Walter, on the first anniversary of the golden mic, I do have to also thank you for giving me this kind of confidence to not only be a coach, but it was 1 year ago today that you and I were jumping on the golden mic for the first time, and you have really transformed the way that I do this show. So I have to say thank you. I don't know if anyone is watching, but I just have to say it between you and I have to say that. Thank you, brother.
And I want to thank you for following your passion and your inspiration.
You make it so easy.
You know what? Because the world's waking up, and it's people like yourself, myself, and there's millions of us all over the world.
Yeah.
It's happening, man. And we're in the right time for this to happen.
And this is going to be the year that you and I meet, for goodness sake. Like, I feel so close to you. We haven't even met yet. On behalf of Walt, I'm Mark. This has been show 123 on the first anniversary of the Golden Mic Live. We started a year ago. I intend to keep going. And so this is my final question for everybody who's watching. And if you're still watching live or on the replay, please share this out. Walt's got some great ideas that need to be seen and heard. If you're feeling good, you're living life in full purpose and meaning, what is your responsibility to changing history for the better? Marc Cordon, Walter Aguilar, we're going to go party now. Tip of the cap. Give us some love. We're out, people.